When you see a lawyer when a lawyer explains something and you wag your finger or go at your keyboard to tell them that he or she is wrong, that's a good indicator that you are in terminal Dunning-Kruger. Terminal, where you can't say, oh, wait. Okay, now Ryan is an expert in this area. Let me step back. Let me submit to his wisdom because he knows more than me. Nope. You argue with an expert, that's a real good sign. What do we do now that we have almost too much information? It's almost like that rascally serpent said, you shall be like God. Like we almost have too much information and it's fried our brains, for lack of a better term. Like, what do we do?
We haven't adapted to it. So honestly, if I had the choice, I would scrap the entire public school system's content and just focus on critical thinking and adapting to this, because this is the starting point. And if you look at what our adversaries like the Russian government, extremist groups, the thing that they're all saying, they all agree upon, it's like the one thing I would say they're right on about is that our weakness is our civil society. So they've been waging a war against us. You think of covert ops, you think of intelligence, economic sabotage. Like you think of all these things, but what people don't think of is an assault on our civil society, meaning our ability to get along, our ability to learn, share information. So it's not just from their perspective about inserting pro-Russian, pro-communist propaganda, in many cases even anti-Christian propaganda. That's in there, and we're used to that. But the objective now is actually just sin and filth. Like you look at what they want to talk about, even our adversaries like in Russia, they proclaim themselves to be a holy country, to be like the true representatives of real Christianity. But you look at what they're trying to do, they say what we need to do is engage in sin ourselves, which is violence, spreading hatred, and things like that. And we need to get the Americans especially to engage in more sin, hate, just basically act very un-Christ-like so that you buy into these horrible ideologies, but America rips itself apart, that it's no longer a melting pot. It's just everyone fighting with everybody. You can't have a constructive conversation. And that's why they'll promote things like any conspiracy theory. So it's not just like one of the decisions they made was, you want the pro-Russian, pro-Chinese conspiracy theories out there. But if you just promote conspiracy theories in general and make that normal, the brain rot that results from that, the other stuff can slip in a lot easier. And you can get people who are Americans to say it, and then Americans will listen to Americans more than they'll listen to someone who's like Russian or North Korean or Iranian. And that was a decision they made. I mean, they made that decision in the 90s, and you're seeing the fruits of it now.
I got you. So would you agree that the quote unquote black pill movement is part of that PSYOP, misinformation, propaganda, anti-intelligence issue that has us doubting pretty much everything? Because I know people now who doubt, who will doubt that you and I are on the screen. Like they will doubt the most basic, like everybody should agree that Wednesday follows Tuesday. unless you've gone down this path. So would you say that is part of that movement to cause us to distrust and be at each other's throats?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what will happen is people will get apathetic and just tune out from the perspective of our enemies. That's good. That's a win because you've neutralized that American. He's no longer involved in the system. He'll be focused on other things. So he's taken care of. You basically killed him. It's a casualty. The others, you want to, if possible, you want to make some believe in your ideology. Good. All right. So then you neutralize them. You win them over to your side. The others, you just want to mess with their brains. You want to make it so that everyone hates each other, so a lot of them just say, well, I can't tell what's true and what's not true. And so you have one group of people that say, so I'm not even going to try. And I have some degree of respect for that. Like at least you have the humility to not get super arrogant and be like, all right, this is too much for me. And then you have the other people that will become, because of the information overload, absolutely convinced that they are an expert of historical proportion. And they double down on their tribalism. And that's kind of the objective of this whole thing, is to get everybody act more tribal, I guess get more arrogant, and make it so that America and the West is so paralyzed that nobody, including these countries' own populations, like in China and Russia, they have to worry about their own populations wanting freedom. Well, if you can make America ugly and look like it's in a state of paralysis and make even Americans not believe in their own country anymore, then that's no longer attractive. You've just secured your own rule as a dictator, and you've done potentially fatal damage to your enemy, the United States and the Western world.
So you've mentioned, and I appreciate that, man. You've mentioned several times arrogance, I know it all, and such of that nature. All right, let's just say that pretty much 100% of us on this best live chat, to some degree, shape, or form, have fallen victim to that. What would be a way to us start unpacking that foolishness so that we could be at least humble enough to look at a conversation, or listen rather to a conversation like we're having, or have a conversation with somebody and say, you know what, I need to change there? Like, what would be some of the start that you would give?
I would say, consider it your patriotic duty. I would argue your faith-based duty as well. That every time you want to retweet something that sounds like it might be right, but you don't really know, but you hate that political party, so you're like, yeah, that sounds right, and you repost it. Understand that what you just did, from the perspective of our adversaries, that's actually a battle. That's not just a bad decision. That's a battle that they won. There's a corrosive effect every time you do that. And so every time you're calling someone an idiot, every time you say something offensive online, you think, oh, they're just words. People need to have thicker skin. I'm just passionate. I wasn't being insulting. I'm just passionate.
Right.
You damaged your country is what you did. And so once people hear that and they take it seriously, I think then a lot of those other things can follow, like incorporating humility and things like that. I think people just need to be educated about the issue in order to take it seriously enough to do it. And then I think the people who seem to be the most humble and end up being the most accurate are the ones who are complete nerds about this stuff. Like the more you know about it, the less certain you become. You realize how many knowledge gaps you have. And so just get people to honestly ask themselves, like I've had people I can't believe this. I've had people get mad at me, former friends of mine, because they were explaining to me how they were more qualified to handle the Middle East than me because they have a degree in biology and can't point out any of the countries on the map, but they just had some ideas from social media and I need to learn from them. And I said, okay, well, I'm willing to hear you, but like, what's the last book on the topic you read?
Right.
And I got told that I was being offensive and insulting. so that ended that relationship. I don't really know what else I could have done, but get people just to honestly ask themselves, like, did you actually check that? At the very least, how about this? Did you download Claude is my favorite AI, but Grok, ChatGPT, whatever. Did you run that by AI and ask it to fact check you on that before you said it? Most people will say no. And hopefully they get a little embarrassed, and then they do it in the future. Because you should just be doing that. Before you make a claim, at least do that.
Well, I personally believe that because we have so much information at our fingertips, we all have secured a PhD in Dunning-Kruger. We all have a PhD in Dunning-Kruger.
Yep.
We all do. Like, and again, I've gone down that path before. Thankfully, before I got on YouTube, I went down that path of I know everything. I know I'm right, and I'm not wrong in any way, shape, or form. I'm just glad I wasn't on YouTube when I did it, though. That's all I can thank God for. I'm just so.
Does everybody know what the Dunning-Kruger thing is? You might want to explain that.
I've mentioned Dunning-Kruger before, and Dunning-Kruger is basically the idea. If you look it up, Dunning-Kruger, it's the idea that you know just enough to think that you know everything. So, it could be a simple topic, and most of us have doom scrolled on social media at night, and you watch something, and you're like, wow. You went down a rabbit trail about auto detailing. You went down an rabbit trail about gardening or homesteading or fixing a roof or whatever. And you watch like 5, 6, 10 of those, and you kind of think you want to do it. You kind of think you want to do it. That's the onset. That's what Dunning-Kruger has bit into you.
Yep.
It sunk his teeth into you. And the venom is when you start telling people how to do it. That is when the venom is metastasized, and now you are a true devotee. You've watched 5 TikToks on gym shoe restoration or how to replace a cracked screen on an iPad, and now you're out here telling people how to do it like an expert. That is I mean, that's just a simple, very comical way to look at Dunning-Kruger, but you can overlay that onto everything. Again, you watch 5 episodes of CNN and now you're a geopolitical analyst. You've watched 5 Law and Crime and now you're a pre-K law student. Those kind of things like that, where you are now an expert. And the last, I guess, good indicator that you know that you have Dunning-Kruger is when you argue with experts about it. When you see a lawyer when a lawyer explains something and you wag your finger or go at your keyboard to tell them that he or she is wrong, that's a good indicator that you are in terminal Dunning-Kruger. Terminal, where you can't say, oh, wait. Okay, now Ryan is an expert in this area. Let me step back. Let me submit to his wisdom because he knows more than me. Nope. You argue with an expert. That's a real good sign that you are on the path of Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah. That the other good test is if you can't effectively argue the other position and cite evidence for it, the one that you don't believe in, you haven't researched it, because that position wouldn't exist unless there was evidence and solid logic for it. You may think it's crazy, but honestly, if you're saying it's crazy, that usually means you have failed to grasp why people believe it.
Correct.
So I'd say if you can't write a 5-paragraph essay with cited sources justifying the point of view you are against, then you have not done the due diligence of fairly considering the other side of whatever that is.
And let me also just add, if you're not able to, not only can you write a 5-paragraph, but you've never actually, personally, I think the first step to that is the fact that they've never looked critically at what they actually believe.
But everybody thinks that they have. That's the thing.
Right.
You ever ask someone, you'll never hear someone say, no, I haven't thought about that.
Yeah. And so a lot of the time people don't know why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And they've never actually taken the time to unpack, why do I believe this idea? Why do I believe this concept? Before they can even argue about whether or not somebody disagrees with them, they themselves don't know why they believe it. And then therein is the rub. That's where the problems, in my opinion, start off. Now, there's a lot of other little nuances, and I'm not saying by any means or measure that this is a broad brush, but I'm saying, like, again, just stop and think. Just ask yourself, as you're dealing out here in these social media streets, are you demonstrating? Do you actually know what you're talking about? And again, even if there's a possibility that the information is in a book over here, that still doesn't mean that I know it.
Right.
That just means the book. That just means the information's over there, and I can go get it and I can cite it. No question, no problem with that. But even in that, I'm just reading what Ryan wrote. I'm just reading what Martin Luther wrote, what John Calvin wrote. That doesn't mean I fully understand it. So me being able to cite it and point it out in a book, chapter and verse and context, still doesn't mean anything because I don't understand it. So I appreciate it. Thank you for unpacking it. So that's why I say that these people have a PhD in Dunning-Kruger, because a lot of times we haven't actually.
It's a good way of explaining one of the core elements of the problem.
Yeah, and there's an intellectual problem as well, because I mean we are the probably one of the first generation that has so much information available to us, but yet understand so little. And I hate to say it, but I think it all started with Ford, and Ford had the idea and the theory. Yeah. Henry Ford had an idea that he didn't have to be the smartest person in the room. He just needed to know where to get the information from.
Okay.
And I might be misquoting him, but I do agree. I do agree that being able to find the information is key. That's what our various social medias and our various search engines are for. The problem is we're not humble enough to admit, like, hey, Ryan, I don't know that answer. I'll get back to you tomorrow. Can I get back to you tomorrow? Can I give you a call back tomorrow? And I'll find the answer to that. No. I'm going to argue you down left and right and center, all the way, argue you down all night, rather than say, hey, you know what? I don't really know that. Let me go find out real quick, and I'll be back. Or do you mind if I take a few moments to find that resource for you, and I'll come back and tell you why I believe X, Y, Z, ABC. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.